The regular season is heating up, new stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. I'm Jamie, and joining me today is best-selling crime thriller author Angela Marsons. Hi, Angela. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Hi, lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me, and I can't wait to see what questions you've got.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. Let's start off right away with Detective Kim Stone, the protagonist of your ongoing series, soon to be 16 books strong. What an amazing, just to have, a series of more than one book, I think is amazing. 16, that's crazy. How did it all start? Where did it all come from?
Well, I've been writing for and submitting for many, many years, but I did spend an awful lot of time writing books with characters that I thought editors and agents would like. I submitted for a very long time. And it was always, we like it, but we just don't love it. And that was always the response. But all the time there was just this character in my head. And I never let her out because I didn't like the sound of her, to be honest. She sounded incredibly rude and obnoxious. And I thought, well, no, nobody is going to want to read about this person because she sounds horrible. And then after so many years of rejection, and I also wrote books set in areas that I didn't know very well because, again, I thought that they would be popular. And so with Silent Scream, I thought, well, I'm going to write the book that I want to with the character, that's in my head, and let's just see what happens. And it was my first try at a crime procedural, and I fully expected to hit a wall at about 30,000 words or get caught up in plotting and pacing and all that. And I just went for it. And 90,000 words later, I'm like, oh, my goodness, it's a book. And, I think it's got a reasonable storyline to it. So I don't know, it was probably at about 30,000 words that the pencil just, completely went on a journey of its own. And I got to know this character more. So although, yes, she was quite rude and obnoxious and brusque, I also, as I was writing that first book, got to know the reasons, why she was the way that she was, and other aspects of her personality, then came out as I was actually writing the character. So I suppose Silent Scream was a journey for both of us. I got to know and let's set free this character that had just been wittering on, in my head for so many years. And 16 books later, she still seemed to have a lot to say. So we just keep going.
Yeah. And Silent Scream has sold over 1 million copies, which is, again, amazing. And was it published in 2015?
It was, February 2015. And when we first published that book, with Bookature, I was asked what if I had any expectation of sales, and I said, well, it'd be lovely if we sold about 500. And that was Oliver, the person who founded Bookature. He said, well, his expectations were slightly higher, but probably not the extent that we have sold the number of copies that we have for that particular book. So, but what is lovely is that we've still got people reading Silent Scream and discovering, the books for the first time. And that's still happening now, which is absolutely fantastic. And of course, if they do enjoy it, they know that, they've got another 14, 15 books to read until they catch up. So, yeah, it's done a very good little job, that book he has.
Yes, it has, and continues to do so. So you sort of touched on that you have been writing for a while, you have been submitting and sort of going through the motions for a while. It's interesting that you say, and I've spoken to a lot of people on similar kind of things, where they finally sort of make the breakthrough when they stop writing the things that they think people want to read or the things that they think the market wants, and then they just write the thing that they're passionate about.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Because also I didn't base any of the books I've written previously in the Black Country thinking, well, nobody writes books about the Black Country. So, it's not a city, it's not sexy, it's not, there's nothing there that a reader's going to, particularly want to read about. And I thought, yeah, but it's my area. It's an area that I know well. So I can write these books with authenticity, and I understand the area. Yeah. And so when I wrote Silent Scream, it was like, I'm just going to do this my way. And whether or not that unleashed something, in me, but it just, I think you have to put aside any expectations or what you think people want, not least because the market changes so rapidly. And also, I always think about when Bridget Jones' Diary came out, and that was a huge smash. And I'm sure at that point most aspiring writers started writing a similar thing. Well, traditionally published authors would not then get a book out for another year, 18 months, and that fad has passed. So trying to keep up with fashion in publishing isn't going to work, because in traditional publishing especially, it's such a slow process. But so you've got to stay true to yourself and write something that you're passionate about. And the idea that I had for Silent Scream, and this is what I've done with every book since, I always find a theme or subject that intrigues me, or that I'm passionate about, or that I want to explore further, so that when I'm doing the research, I'm learning, about these subjects as well. So, that's something that I do. But it is important to stay true to what you do feel passionate about, and not try to meet any expectations or, anything from agents and publishers, because I just don't think that works. So it didn't work for me.
Yeah,
It did 25 years and it didn't work for me.
Yeah. So 25 years. So you have been writing for a very long time. What were you sort of initially writing? You said this was your first crime procedural. So what were you did you start off trying to do, and where did you end up sort of getting lost in the weeds of submitting and stuff?
Well, I started off sort of like writing short stories and, that kind of thing, and submitting those to magazines. And then I started writing women's fiction. Well, I think women's fiction is quite a broad term. But the first book I wrote, which is now called The Forgotten Woman, was about two women, both alcoholics, but from very, very different backgrounds. And it's about a friendship that forms between the two of them based on, a shared addiction. And it was just an idea that, I wanted to show how alcoholism, it doesn't attach itself to any class or, particular type of person. And once I had that idea, that was the book that, I wanted to write. So I kind of wrote that kind of book first before, turn to crime, fictionally speaking.
Yeah.
But I always enjoyed reading crime. Lots of my favourites, Val McDermid, Carol O'Connell, Karen Slaughter. So I always enjoyed reading crime. I never thought that I could write a crime book because I didn't understand the plotting and the pacing and the red herrings and the leaving clues and the twist. And that was why when I started Silent Scream, I had no idea where it was going to go. And I was as surprised as anybody is, because as I was writing the book, that was when a lot of the things that I hadn't understood actually came to me. It wasn't planned. I didn't have it all plotted down, and I still don't do that now. I have an idea, and I know roughly where I'm going to start and know roughly where I'm going to end. And the whole middle is a bit of a blur, and all gets worked out in the second draft. But I find that the best ideas come to me as I'm actually writing. Okay. So, a character will spur another storyline or a clue or something like that. So that's what works for me. I know I probably should plan, but I just don't.
Well, I've heard that a lot. And what I do find is, because with all things, people often say the book is written in the redrafts or something to that effect. And a lot of the time, people that say that they don't plan, you do a draft, your first draft, and then kind of you go into the heavy redrafting phase. And a lot of time that first draft really is just the plan. And you're going to change it so much by the time it kind of reaches its final form.
That's exactly what I say, though, because I always call the first draft my sandpit. Because I write by hand with pencils and 8-foot notepads. And that is my time with the book. It's the time that I'm getting to know the new characters. I'm getting to finalise the plot in my head and the plan. And I always think of that as my sandpit. And I'll often say I can put aliens, landing in chapter 37 if I want to. It's up to me. I can do whatever I want. It's my freedom. I understand that in draft 2, I'm going to have to take them out again.
Yeah.
But in draft 1, I can do whatever I want. It's just me and the story. And there's that intimacy at that stage. And that's what I love. I love to just write it with my pencils. And it doesn't matter how many times I do it, there is still a sense of excitement when I start off with my new notepads, my new pack of pencils, and, ready to start another journey. And that excitement just doesn't go away.
Amazing. I can't believe, so you write is it just the first draft that you do by hand?
Yeah, I do the first draft by hand, so that normally comes out at normally around 70,000 words.
Wow.
And while I'm writing it, my partner Julie is typing it, so that by the time I get to the end of writing the first draft, there's already some typed chapters for me to start on, and I start then going through and changing, and doing the second draft. So, and that's where I take the aliens out.
Okay, that's a great system you've got going, where it's already ready for you, because it would have been like sort of slowing the process a lot if you then had to type it all up off the notes.
It would, yeah, and that would make the second draft a real long part of it, because when you type for a long time. Because before, I was able to write for a living, I did a lot of typing in the day job, and it can become quite tiresome after a bit. You start thinking, I'll leave that entire chapter out because I just don't want to type it, So you sort of type 17 chapters, your fingers, it's like, no, leave that one out. It's not as good as I thought, so we'll just bin that completely. So it's great to be able to start the second part of the process as soon as I finish the first part, and I can just go straight into it and start weeding out what I don't like and adding in, ideas I've had since, or, reshaping it ready for the third draft, which is, a good read through and check of everything, and just finalising everything, and then a fourth final read through before it goes off to my editor Claire at Bookouture.
Okay. So talking of Bookouture, I'm right in thinking you aren't represented by a literary agent.
No, I'm not.
So the initial deal at Bookouture was a 4-book deal. How did that come about?
Yeah. That came about because I was at one point represented by an agent, and it was not a positive experience for me at all. And that was for about 2 years. And the lady I worked with there, named Keshni, she was a reader for the agency, and it was her that, read Silent Scream in the first place. We had a great relationship, but obviously when I was dropped, we weren't in touch after that.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that Julie and I were at the worst point in our lives. I'd taken voluntary redundancy from a place that I'd worked for 19 years to give the writing thing a go. And it had failed miserably, and I couldn't get a job. So we were selling our possessions to pay the mortgage and borrowing money from family members just to pay bills. And it was our darkest time. We've never been in such a poor financial situation. Excuse me. And I finally got a job working 12-hour night shifts in an alarm receiving centre. And a week or so after starting that job, I received an email from Keshni, the reader, who had left the agency. And she said that she had sent Silent Scream to a young and dynamic digital first publisher, and she hoped I didn't mind. And at that point, because of what we'd been through with being dropped by the agent and the financial problems, I couldn't actually hope that they were going to like it, because I'd conditioned myself that I was just going to make this job work, put the writing, on the back burner for a while, and just focus on being able to pay the bills. And that was how it started. She sent it into Bookouture without me knowing, and luckily they loved it and asked me for other ideas, by which time 3 books were written, because I'd been working with the agent. And so they offered me a 4-book deal, and it was amazing.
Wow. What an incredible story. What a great comeback story as well. So we're obviously on 16 books now. That 4-book deal obviously had a lot of success. Over 1 million copies sold of Silent Scream. At what point does that become I've never heard of a 12-book deal before, realistically. When did that become a 12-book deal?
Well, what happened was, it was when Silent Scream did so much better than any of us expected it to do.
Yeah.
It was sort of like at that point that I started to get emails and contact from agents and publishers showing an interest. And, these people have been rejecting me for 25 years, and Bookouture had given me a chance. And so I told Oliver that, the founder of Bookouture, that I was getting these emails and phone calls and things. And he said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to sign for another 4 with us? And I said, absolutely. So I signed for another 4. And then as we got to the end of that, I signed for another 8. And then as we approached the end of that, Claire, my editor, said, well, what do you want to do now? I said, well, obviously we want to sign for some more. And she said, how many? I said 8. She said, well, I was hoping for double figures. And I said, well, let's go 12 then. And she's like, okay, fantastic. Because I don't want to be published by anybody else, because loyalty is hugely, hugely important to me. Bookouture were the first publishers to give me an opportunity to achieve the dream of writing for a living. Everything has far, far surpassed the dreams that I had, but they made everything I'd ever wanted come true. So who could do any better for me than that?
Yeah.
There isn't anybody. So what would be the point in going elsewhere? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a fantastic relationship with Bookouture. I don't need an agent in the way. Everything is transparent. I can email any member of the team at any time, and that's always been the case. So there's nothing for an agent to add, and there's nothing that any other publisher could do any better for me and the way, you know, I like to write, with doing 2 books a year. Than Bookouture do. So there's no benefit to me to look elsewhere for anything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And so Bookouture is part of Hachette. Was it through Bookouture? Did they because you also, is it the physical copies that are published through Little Brown, which is also part of Hachette?
Yes.
Okay, so that sort of happens as an aside. Through Bookouture kind of sorted that out for you.
Yeah, because Bookouture wasn't owned by Hachette when I joined them. Bookouture, when I joined, excuse me, was 3 people, which was Oliver, Claire, the publishing director, and Kim Nash, the publicity manager, and then Keshni, the lady who'd sent Silent Scream into Bookouture, came on board as my editor, and we worked on the first 8 books together. So Bookouture was was a very small concern. It was just 4 people, and they'd published some books, so that, you know, they were already up and running. But I was the first crime book that they published. It's grown, obviously, substantially over the years, and is now part of Hachette, as you say, and they publish the paperbacks. But I kind of do think of myself as a digital first author. The dream, obviously, was, many years ago, was to see the books on shelves and that kind of thing, which is great. It's all very nice when you do see the books on shelves and people send you photos. But my market is the digital market. And I've always said the paperback sales pay for the electricity, but it's the ebooks that pay the mortgage. So, I'm more than happy being a digital first publisher. That suits me fine.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, it just makes sense, and that there's no sort of, it's lovely to hold the physical copy of the book and see it on the shelf, but the digital one's so readily accessible on so many different platforms and mediums, so it just makes sense. Yeah,
and I do, I get the paperbacks of all the books, and it's lovely to see them there. And I was lucky enough to, go into the shops and see them on the shelves. And Waterstones are fabulous, incredibly supportive. But it's I suppose traditional publishing, in a way, is a bit slow for me, because I'm terrible. If I got a book to write every year or 18 months, I'd do nothing for 8 or 9 months and then rush it all right at the end. With doing 2 books a year, there's a system which keeps me busy all of the time. So I don't get a chance to just, I'll wait a couple of months. I'll take a few months off. So, as I say, the way it works with Bookouture suits me perfectly. So I always think, if the 25 years of rejection were because it needed to lead to this, then that's fine. I get it. It's, that works. Because I'm very happy doing what I do the way that I do it with Bookouture, which, of course, when I started, submitting, I think Oliver, who founded Bookouture, was probably a teenager or something. So, he had to have a chance to cook up Bookouture, and it really was meant to be. So they're a fabulous publisher, and like I said, I wouldn't want to work with anyone else.
Amazing. Well, sounds absolutely amazing. And before, I just have one more question before we get on to the final question, which is book 16 comes out later this year in May. Do you have any plans to write maybe something that's not Detective Kim Stone, maybe go back to your sort of pre-crime roots or anything like that, or are you just going to stick with the crime procedurals now?
I think I'd never say never about writing something else, because you never know when something's going to strike you to the degree that you just have to get it down.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a plan to do anything, because doing the 2 books a year is quite full on, and it does mean sort of like that every month is kind of accounted for, with whether it be writing the new book or editing the one that's just been written.
Yeah.
So it's quite full on, but I'd never say never. You never know when an idea might come. You think, oh, hang on, I've got to put aside an hour a day to work on that idea. So I'd never say never.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, that brings us to the final question, which is, as always, Angela, if you were stranded on a desert island with one book, which book would it be?
It would be Disclosure by Michael Crichton.
Okay.
Which is probably going to be a very strange choice, but it is the first book that actually caused me to call in sick for work some years ago, because I literally could not put the book down. And a film was made, of it with Demi Moore and whatever, and it was a travesty of the actual book. The book was so much more and so much deeper. I reread the book so that I could understand what it was that made me have to keep reading, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it was the way that he posed the questions and answered them and that kind of thing. But that would be the book, because I could not literally take it out of my own hands. I didn't have the willpower to go to sleep, and so I had to phone in sick the next day. So it would be Disclosure by Michael Crichton.
What a brilliant choice. I think that's the first Michael Crichton we've had on the desert island as well. But he's just
it's so unlike his other books, isn't it?
But he's so it's so clever. Like even just Jurassic Park, which is one of my favorite books and films of all time. And it's just when you see like the way that each character represents a full like philosophy and theme, and then the way that they're positioned to challenge each other. He's just so clever.
He's such a clever writer. As I say, I literally could not put that book down. So yeah, I think he's amazing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for coming on the podcast and chatting with me and sharing your experiences with everyone listening. It's been really great chatting with you.
No, it's been lovely. Thank you. That's flown by, that has.
And for everyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Angela is doing, you can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at WriteAngie. Follow her on Facebook at Angela Marsons Author, or head over to the website angelamarsons-books.com. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK, or on Instagram at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks so much to Angela, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.